At this time, we'll call to order the Common Council and Redevelopment Authority special meeting, November 19th, 2024. Carrie, roll please.
For the Redevelopment Authority, we have Kendall Dvorak.
Here.
Jerry Henrigillis. Carol Carls.
Here.
Ted Penn.
Here.
Lisa Vandenhoven. Joe Van Derzen.
Here.
And Julie Van Straten. And then for the Common Council, we have Alderperson Carpenter.
Here.
Essercon.
Here.
Gantz.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Cuniger.
Here.
Ledvina.
Here.
P-Rock.
Here.
Quigley.
Here.
And Mayor Boyd.
I am here, thank you. Item 2, Redevelopment Authority Resolution 2401, finding the property located at 2535 Lawrence Drive to be blighted and authorizing the finding to be forwarded to the Common Council for appropriate action. 2 and 3. We'll deal with the same thing, but before that, we're going to kick to Dan.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. I will be presenting the item. It'll be the same presentation, so I'll only do it once, I promise, to the council and RDA. And the RDA has heard this one a few times, so I'll try to keep it kind of more high level. But if there are any questions as I go, please feel free to stop me. But the item in front of you tonight is a blight declaration for the property that was identified at 2535 Lawrence Drive. And the reason why this is being brought forward here is because there's a number of blighting factors on the property that over time have continued to grow. And at this time, the city would like to take the appropriate action to return this to a property in the community that is, one, tax-paying, but also, two, not in a blight situation. So the area in discussion tonight is the currently owned by G&G Rebuilders. It's on the very southwest corner of the community. If you know where the Garrity's Glen South subdivision is, it is the last remaining parcel right in that subdivision. And back in 2019 and 2020, the city was not able to acquire their portion of that right of way, so we could fully build Garriman Drive out to a full street width. And so that's the reason why you see Garriman Drive is like a half a street width there. So since a little bit of a high-level overview is the parcel was annexed into the city in 2002. It was developed between 92 and 2000. I don't have the history on it because at that time it was in the town of Lawrence. So it was brought in 2002, but over time the outdoor storage and its use has grown without appropriate approvals. And so as a result of that one, there's a couple of blighting factors that have happened over time. The neighboring farm, the Garrity family farm, was developed in 2019 and 20. And if you've looked at the air photos, you'll actually notice how some of the equipment on that farm magically made its way onto this property as well shortly after that one. And so that's where some of those outdoor storage of uses have continued to grow. The property owner itself, articles of dissolution in 2020 at that point, and then the property owner has not paid any taxes in 6 years. Local taxes. It has also not paid federal, state, or special assessments during that time either. It did have one blip payment, but other than that, pretty much over the past 6 years, no taxes have been paid on that property. And the city, as I mentioned, is attempting to clean this up for a specific reason, one of which is the southern entry point into the community. We've just recently acquired 75 acres to the south of it that we're going to build a subdivision in, and we need to make sure that is a welcoming opportunity into our community. So there's several factors that can be a blighted declaration. I promise I'm not going to read that. But if you look at the blighted section or the bolded sections, you can kind of see where some of the factors that are coming in play in this property, which is dilapidation, deterioration, obsolescence, combination of factors, and then also tax or special assessments that exceed the fair market value of the property. And so those are the blighting factors that typically meet what has to be done to meet a blight declaration. If you look at, that's a blighted area definition, but a blighted property, in this case, they're both compliance because it's blighted property and blight declaration. And in this case here, again, the adequacy of and usefulness of the parcel, safe and unsanitary conditions, deteriorating property, diversity of ownership, and special assessments, again, same conditions typically still apply. So in this case, we're going to talk about three things where this property meets those definitions or that threshold for blight. One of which is the character of the structures have resulted in detrimental to public health, the safety and moral welfare. Again, the tax situation being higher taxes than what the value is actually of the property. And then the areas largely contain lands and buildings which have been demolished or conditions impair or arrest the sound growth of the community. And that impair the sound growth of the community is, again, what we're talking about when we're talking about our expansion to the south. So just on the overview map, here's what it looked like in 2000. It came in 2002. Over time, our non-conforming use started to grow in 2005, 2010, 2014, 2014 to 2017, it didn't change much. 2020, it grew. Again, that part to do with, again, a lot of the stuff came from the farm, came over to here. And then in 2023, it grew some more and added some additional items. But overall, the overall unapproved outdoor storage area grew by 150% approximately. So, and we also saw in there that there was also a building that was constructed that we don't have a permit for. So, again, multiple things happening on this site since it came into the community. So I have a lot more pictures, but I did include some in your packet. But since 2020, we've now seen additional tanks come on site. We've seen additional trailer storage. We've also seen additional equipment come on. As a rebuilder, engine rebuilding shop, you start to see fluids start to drip, and because there's no catch basin, it's overparked over grass and gravel, seeping into the ground, and there could be also contamination on this property now as a result of that as well. So that's the overall expansion of the non-conforming use, the outdoor storage, unsightly conditions. Here's the analysis for the unpaid taxes versus the local special assessments. In the 2023 tax bill, the 2024 assessments, we're looking at just under $300,000 for the value of the property based off its assessment ratio, but $318,000 in special assessments, back taxes, state, federal, and local. So again, that meets that definition. So by that determination, the one property in this area meets the definition of blight, and therefore staff believes it is appropriate for the RDA and the council to declare it as blighted. And there's the steps in the process. We're kind of in that final step for declaring blight, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, and then we will take questions from either the Common Council or RDA before we have motions and seconds. Anyone have a question anywhere regarding this?
I've got just one.
Ted?
One comment. Dan or Tony, one of you could comment on.
Use the mic.
Is it on? I think it is.
Yep.
Maybe you could just comment briefly on the outside council opinion that goes along with this project.
Yes, they've reviewed it and have concurred that this meets the definition of blighted property under the statute.
Thank you. Any other questions, Ted?
No.
Joe?
Yeah, some of the equipment parked on that property, there's a backhoe, there's a semi-truck with a trailer. Some of the stuff has got to be registered to somebody. Has anybody contacted the owners and get your crap off the lot there?
Well, I know Dan has, I know I've been trying to connect with them, and so have you.
Yeah, so kind of a brief overview. Some of this stuff has really popped up in the past 5 years, and we've had our inspectors sort of out there taking pictures, but we've wanted to make sure that we're keeping, if there's also a situation where the town or the county may have gone after it for tax foreclosure purposes. The county elected not to do that one. And during that time, the IRS and the county told us not to play heavy-handed with an inspection situation because that would have potentially been a conflict. And so we haven't been forcefully doing that because it was directed us not to, and that also came from the former city attorney. So we have those means and mechanisms that we followed. But in relation to this project alone, this blight designation, we have sent out 2 certified letters and a regular mailing to this property owner, and no response one way or the other. So our next step, if we do elect to go down that path, will be to do that next process. If we do go down that path, or if we go down a condemnation path, there's another avenue to go down that as well. So, but yes, we've been wanting to, but as a direction of it's sort of keeping the 2 things in a separate parallel path, we haven't crossed those.
Joe?
With all the back taxes, why isn't the county foreclosed on that property? It just seems to be a no-brainer. You don't pay your taxes on your home. The 3rd year, they're calling for a foreclosure on your property. And it's just, they foreclose on your home if you don't pay the taxes. And it's a 3-year process, and then you're out, and they own your property. This is 7 years, and why hasn't it happened?
Dan?
So we had a meeting with the county in relation to this property and some others around the county who have not paid their taxes either. There was a Wisconsin Supreme Court case law, as well as changes to state statute, which has, as the county put it, has made them shy away from doing any foreclosures during that time frame. So as far as we understand it, the county has not done any tax foreclosures roughly around this same time. So at this point, while they could have taken it 3 years ago, They have chosen not to, and they were actually told to be put on hold while the IRS was looking at it. The IRS said, we're not going to take any enforcement on it. County decided not to take any enforcement on it. So now we're left sort of in that last position to kind of take a condemnation approach from a blight determination standpoint.
Does that answer your question, Joe?
No.
Does that answer your question satisfactorily? No.
So everybody should quit paying their taxes.
Right?
Yeah, we hope that's not the case, and no one heard that, but
So do I.
other than you people. Yeah, I hear you. One other question I think that might come up is, say they never answer. We never hear from them. What happens then?
Well, our next step will be condemnation proceedings if we so elect to go down that path, which I believe is going to be our next case.
Right.
And that's when formal offers will have to be made, and I'll let kind of Tony speak to some of those processes.
Tony?
Yeah, we would just go through the condemnation process in which we would make all of those attempts. We would document it, and ultimately, that would include going through the appraisal process and then making a jurisdictional offer, and then that would ultimately result in depositing money with the court. So we would take our actions as much as we could, while also making attempts to contact them. If they don't participate, then presumably we would obtain a default judgment and be able to move forward in that sense.
I assume the assumption we wouldn't want to make them whole and make them winners out of this, I wouldn't think, right?
Well, I think part of the appraisal process will also take into consideration all those back taxes, and our appraisal will be reflective of that,
Okay.
and our offer will be.
Alderperson Conacher.
You keep referring to condemnation process. What are we talking about here? Years? Months?
That all depends, I guess you'd say, on the opposition by the party. It can be 6 months. It could be a longer process if they elect to go through a longer legal process with attorneys. All depends on opposition, I guess you'd say, to the process.
So they would get a chance to oppose even though you're
Well,
not
at that point, it
anything?
goes, as Tony mentioned, it goes to the court, and it goes through that process, I guess you'd say, which then they could get an appraisal and go back and forth on those components. So,
Have to start somewhere. That's why we're starting. Other questions we have? RDA? Common Council. Alderperson Quigley.
I may have missed this, or I don't know if you know the answer. Was it 2002 you said the property came into the city?
yes.
What was that process like? Did the property owner request that, or was that part of a bigger transaction?
It came in as part of a larger annexation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Carpenter.
By us owning that property that we just purchased, that 75 acres, does that help this process along? Because, I mean, we could have went after this 3 years ago if we wished to. But we didn't own that property. Does that give us an upper hand or not? Because now we own something where that was in the town of Lawrence and now it's in the city of De Pere? Because that was right on the outskirts.
I don't think it helps us our position at all, because it is the blight determination is meant to stand on its own, and the merits of that should stand on its own. So I don't think it helps us any more or less.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? And again, we'll treat each item separately. So right now, technically, we have item 2 on the table for the RDA. So RDA, we need a motion and a second for item 2 regarding what you read in item 2. And that would be the resolution finding the property located at 2535 Lawrence Drive to be blighted and authorizing the finding to be forwarded to Common Council for appropriate action. You need a motion and a second
I'll
for
make
that.
a motion to approve it. Make a
I'll second.
recommendation.
Motion by Ted, seconded by Carol. Additional discussion or comments by the RDA, item 2. Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That was just for the RDA.
Oh,
So
wow.
the RDA, item 2, has now moved that to you guys. So I'm going to go to item 3. Item 3, Common Council Resolution 2496, concurring with the Redevelopment Authority of the City of De Pere's blight determination at 2535 Lawrence Drive. I now need a motion and a second from the Common Council.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Carpenter, seconded by Alderperson Conacher. Any additional discussion or comments by the council regarding item 3? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion, we'll need this from either parties, to adjourn and a second.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Levinus, seconded by Alderperson Gantz. So then we need you all have to say aye if you want to adjourn. Everybody.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody.